Well, hi, and welcome to MindShifters Radio. Today is the last day of the year, Friday, December 31st, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. However, the first hour is going to be pre-recorded. Dr. Tim is on vacation this week, and we played, if you haven't listened to them, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we played pre-recorded shows on how the 12-step in AA is very similar to the forgiveness work. And we had different guests on each of those 3 days. And then yesterday we played the first century Aramaic forgiveness. And today we're doing Why MindShifters. And so enjoy this one. And then Michael and I will be back with you live at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, dear heart. And welcome, everybody. Honored and delighted that you're here. And certainly appreciative of the fact that we get to have this conversation, open this conversation one more time about the first century Aramaic forgiveness process and all of the correlated tools. Yesterday we talked about MindShifters, and I don't think we actually opened the lines for anybody who wanted to get a MindShifter, Jeannie. We did talk about using that one each time I open, face, and heal another issue in my life, even though it may be physically, mentally, and or emotionally painful. I take one more step into vitality and eternal life. So if anybody worked on that MindShifter, it'd be awesome to hear how it impacted you, what happened as you wrote about that. And to use the MindShifter, you take the thought that is the MindShifter, you put it on the left side of the page, you draw a line down the middle of the page, divide it in two, and you use the MindShifter as a catalyst to resonate whatever's in your mind, and then dump it on the right-hand side so you have a record. And so that's the focal point of a MindShifter. And so if you'd like to get a MindShifter, specifically related to the sheet we were talking about yesterday, we'll ask you to get it out. And again, you pick two numbers, one from the grouping 1 to 3. First number that pops into your head from 1 to 3, and then a second number from 1 to 13. I always use that. I've used that for, 4 decades now, working with people, so that I bypass, my intellect, their intellect, and trying to figure out, what should I work on here, and ask for guidance. And it's actually quite hilarious, especially in intensive, where a number of people are gathered who've been working together for, a week or 2 weeks maybe. And then we do a MindShifters and still point breathing process. Each time in an intensive we do the still point process, we start it out, or, we assign a MindShifter and get people to do some writing to stir things up. And so if it stirred anything up for you, it'd be interesting to hear what your process was if you wrote that MindShifter yesterday, and or if you want to push one and get a custom MindShifter, just push one. Jeannie will answer and will ask you for your two numbers from 1 to 3, from 1 to 13. So you've got two separate numbers. And that will key you into a specific MindShifter, which she will give you. So if you have anything to share, push one. Let's talk about it. And or
Michael,
anything on your mind at all in regard to these awesome tools. MindShifter, still point breathing, forgiveness, responsibility communication, commitment. There's a list of so many tools. Each different workshop addresses a different aspect of the healing process. And so if you're out there in this land, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
There are no hands up. However, yesterday we didn't have time to get to her because we were having a pretty detailed conversation with a new young man who had just called into the show. However,
awesome,
Julie had texted MindShifter 1-1, and that one is, and I think that you've reworded it, but it says, I deserve love just because the breath of life was put into me. So I don't know if you want to reword that somehow. I am love because the breath of life?
Yeah. I deserve to experience myself as love. as opposed to, the kinds of conversations we talked about yesterday that replicate what messages we've been given by a power person. So that would be a rewrite of that. Actually, I do need to go in and edit the sheet before we send them out for the workshop this weekend. For there are a few edits for me to make there. So if you wrote that MindShifter yesterday,
we'll have to let them know that you're resending, because I have already sent the list to the people that had signed up.
So, all right. Well,
I've already, and if you have signed up and you haven't gotten or found the email from me, I have sent you the first 2 videos, the MindShifters and Introduction to Still Point Breathing, and then also an hour and some close to 2-hour video from our August intensive on MindShifters. And then I sent you the MindShifter list and asked you to pick 2 numbers and text me or email me and let me know what your 2 numbers are, because you need to be looking at doing your MindShifter. Of course, I sent you the list so you can look it up yourself, but I have sent that out, plus the Zoom links, to everybody who has signed up for Saturday. And we might want to mention for those who are listening what we're talking about for Saturday.
Well, we're doing a MindShifters and Still Point Breathing workshop on Saturday. And if anyone would like to join us, it'll actually start at 10 in the morning Eastern Time and go until 5 o'clock. And then it will continue. We'll give people a little bit of an intermission and to keep working on what is quite a shock to people when they realize that saying the words, I forgive you, or I forgive myself, that it's beyond belief. So our purpose in being here is, 1, to learn ourselves to be the state of conscious, active, present love, to extend the energetic experience of that state to others. And when I'm talking about others, at this moment, I'm talking about you. And it doesn't matter where you are. On the level where energy moves or radiates from the truth of who we are as love, all matter is transparent. And so it doesn't matter if you're in Australia, Bob, holding you in our hearts if you're with us today. If you're in Sweden, Peter, holding you in our hearts if you're with us. Vipia, if you're there in Thailand. Or if you're just down the block here from us in Bristol, Tennessee, we extend that energetic dynamic, that presence to you. And here's what we know, is that each individual who realizes who they are and chooses out of love, by doing so, sets up a literal high energy wave, an actual energy field that, and you remember yesterday we were talking about resonance, that through resonance resonates the state of being in anyone they touch or think of. Hence the line in the worksheet that says, when I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. And when you realize that's who you are, you begin to free yourself as that which your parents and their parents and their parents engaged in are stored within yours. If we hide the parts of our minds away that we don't want to deal with, and the most powerful way to do that, or I guess I should say, story comes to mind back in the early days when we were doing Laws of Living. My partner, Dan McDougall, a permanent link to the video of that workshop that particular day. So you can always go back and review what happened and tap in and look at the instructions that were given and all of that sort of thing. As well as, so there'll be a total of 4 videos included in that session, the Wednesday evening follow-up. So all of that's included, in the cost, if you're doing just 1 week, is $150, includes all 4 videos. If you want to do a 3-month package, you want to sign up for 3 months, and you can place those, you can do one this month and wait 2 months and do another one, wait 3 months and do another one, whatever. Then the cost for the 3 months is $300. instead of $450.
No,
and if
it's
you
$370. Michael, it's $375.
Pardon me? Oh, excuse me. You got me. Pardon me. I don't have the sheet in front of me. And then the yearly membership is $1,200, and if it's paid in advance, then it's $900. So we're going to deduct $300 off of that. So $75 a month for a year, and you're part of an ongoing educational process, particularly geared, although I'm sure that won't be the only thing we'll address, but particularly geared to how to utilize the still point breathing process and becoming really well acquainted with the MindShifters process. So that'll be a full year educational process if anybody wants to play. Drop Jeannie a note at JEANIE at WHYagain.org. And or if you've got my number, you're certainly welcome to text me or call me. We'll have a conversation about it and get you set up to come play. Some long-term students of the work are participating, and the things that open up when you get the hem of the garment. We were talking about the hem of the garment principle the other day, working together in a community setting like that toward the same goal. The things that happen are quite monumental, quite profound. So, and Jeannie, the MindShifter that Julie happened to pick yesterday actually fits perfectly with our reading for today, which is from page 123 in the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? If you're new to the show, we're working our way through my book a few paragraphs at a time. And if you want to follow along, unfortunately the book's out of print, but you can go to Amazon or eBay, and they have lots of used copies for sale, usually pretty inexpensively, almost embarrassingly inexpensive. And then we've also, if you want to go to our website, you can download the book free, actually in English and German and Russian and Spanish and Farsi and Danish, and I'm not even sure what other languages. There is a Swedish copy of the book, but the Swedish publisher didn't want to put the book online free, so they wouldn't let us do that. Unfortunately, we've been efforting getting the copyright back. It was supposed to default back to us, and we've been having some difficulties. The company seems to have, that published it originally, seems to have disappeared, and so we've had some challenges in being able to get that, because we'd like to take it and put it online, so it's also available free. In any event, that's kind of a taste of what's happening. And in the book, on page 123, we're about the middle of the page. We've been talking to Richard about love and the direct experience of love. And he's been asking for a definition of love. And I reply to him, I don't have one. I do know a way to experience it, or what will tell you when love is present. Well, Richard says, what are the signals that tell you love is present? First, the mind that holds the condition of love, in the ancient Aramaic, perfect love, is peaceful and patient in all circumstances. This mind takes responsibility for any disturbance it has, and therefore heals itself quickly and creates a space of healing for others. Additional fruit of the mind of love includes its a tenderness, compassion, and gentleness. So when a mind is present, when love is present in a mind, there's going to be that state of serenity, tenderness, compassion, gentleness. A mind that proclaims it punishes and brandishes fear in the name of love is either deceiving or is a deceived mind. No such fruit possible from love. We hear people talking about, this overwhelmingly powerful being called love that created an insanely threatening place for us to burn and suffer. And that's just part of the fear-based mind's misunderstanding of the original language and the original meaning of the words in the Aramaic scriptures. If you go to the word hell in Aramaic, it's actually the Gehenna, the fiery place. It was basically a dump outside of the city of Jerusalem. I understand that today the Gehenna is actually a place of very high-end condos now. The dump is gone, and it's now valuable property. But, basically it was the fiery place, the Gehenna. It was the garbage dump. It was where, if people didn't have the funding to be properly buried, they took their bodies to the Gehenna to be burned. And it was where garbage was dumped. It was smelly. It was nasty. It was hellfire and brimstone. And they used that as a threat with little kids. You don't be good, I'll take you to the Gehenna. And it worked pretty well, so they created one for big people. But if you think a mind called love is capable of that, well, then you haven't experienced a mind called love. It just is not in your ken, I guess. And it's time for that experience. That makes sense out of a lot of senselessness I've seen, Richard sighed. What do you mean when you say you had a way to experience love? We could call this an experiential definition. Love is what you experience after you use the process of true forgiveness.
Yeah.
It is what is left when the mind's realities get out of the way. Now, if I tell you that and you believe it, we'll have another belief system in the world, another belief system that people will fight over and defend. If you use the tools and have a personally experienced, is there anything to fight over? No. Only the insecure who don't know what love is have to force and fight over their BS, their belief systems. Only the insecure need to have everyone believe the same way they do so their beliefs will not be challenged. Key thought here, an experiential definition of love. What you experienced just after true forgiveness. Richard, each of us was created in and as a state of love, and that's such an important thought. Created in and as a state of love. And we deserve to experience that state 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If we're not experiencing it, something is out of place. When we withhold love from another, it is we who suffer from the withdrawal of that love. It is we who experience the lack of love. Remember what you knew as a child about the way the world was supposed to operate? My function in the world is to deliver tools to people and point them toward the result possible with the use of the tools. My goal is to inspire you to use the tools and then arrive at your own conclusions about life. Of course, I think when the evidence is in, this work will prove itself correct. But the world does not need another belief system. It needs the experience of love. So you remember back in our reading earlier as we talked to Richard about this, Richard was kind of lost in this state where one moment he'd have clarity and he'd feel connected, and the next moment he'd be in confusion. And we pointed out that the tools, as you use them, will uncover the confusion that needs to be healed. If you take a moment and just allow yourself to close your eyes for a minute, take a deep breath, and remember a moment, or allow yourself to imagine a moment where you are holding a newborn child. So just take a moment, breathe, let your mind go. And if you don't have the experience of holding a newborn, let me loan you mine. Actually, let me loan you two. I have two children. I have the privilege of getting to catch them myself as they were born. And I can remember the overwhelming intensity of the experience when my firstborn came out. It was actually brought some significant fear up in me. And it's something that I've worked on and had to process through. But then it moved into this space of holding such a precious presence. And I can remember the moment of doing that and thinking to myself, if somebody doesn't do something, and in this context, my thinking was something about the state of the world, there's not going to be a place for this precious little one to grow up. And that's the thought as that went through my head, is what inspired me to commit to doing this work on a whole new level, making it available to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. And then the second experience, as my daughter was born, her head delivered. And, they tell you that a child can't focus their eyes, a newborn, for the first several days. My daughter opened her eyes and laser looked me right square in the eye, and she grinned during her birth. And I'll tell you that sent me literally into that direct experience of love in a way I had only, what should I say, very briefly tasted previous to that point. Actually, the weekend she was born, I lived in Atlanta at that point. We had a classroom in our home, and it was a weekend. I did weekend workshops, and I had a weekend set up for Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And along about 2:40 in the afternoon, realized that my wife was in labor. And I had a class starting at 7. There was one person I remember coming from Miami, and that was before cell phones. That was 40 years ago now. And so couldn't call and say, hey, we're canceling the class. The labor, once we realized she was actually in full labor, the baby was born within an hour. 4:40 was her birth time. And at 7 o'clock, 10-pound Krista Joy, we actually hadn't named her until in the process of the birth, and it just became really clear, and she informed us what her name was. So, 4:40 she's born, and 2 hours and 20 minutes later, I've got her on one arm and I'm answering the door as people are coming in to do the class, and they're like, no, she wasn't just born 2.5 hours ago. It's like, yes, she was. And I went down to the classroom, started to teach, and here's the impact that presence of love had on me directly, and that's precisely what first century Aramaic forgiveness does, is it empowers one to interrupts the process of informing the cell about the actuality and inserts in the place of that information about actuality an artificial construct, a made-up world that is nothing but a projection of unresolved past experiences. Those experiences held in body memory are constructed using past thoughts from those memories. So now what we have is a cell, instead of awareness based on truth and love being the root of perception. Most perceptions are formed from content acquired from the past based in fear and hostility. These perceptual constructs of the mind appear to be current, present moment experiences to the mind, which can't tell the difference between an accurate or an hallucinated reality. Fear and hostility are markers that indicate current perception is being formed from the past and therefore does not represent truth. Fear and hostility tell you that your perceptual constructs are being made from the past and do not represent truth. But your cells don't know that. Your cells respond as though what's being communicated by those neuropeptides is true. So we have the potential for actuality to be an energy that comes into our experience. And take a moment. Have you ever held a newborn? If so, go back and remember holding that newborn once again and tap into the essence of the newborn. Everybody's description of that newborn, the words they use to speak about it, is some variation on the theme of love. Now, when you go back and remember that, ask yourself the question, is the newborn loving me, or is the newborn love? Pretty much instantly becomes clear that the newborn is not loving, that the newborn is love. And they are such radically different states that we need to clean up our definition of love, because if you think love is something you can do, you'll keep trying to do something you can't do. You can't do love. It's not possible. This is the principle that needs to be clarified, and I think it's one of the most important misunderstandings. You know, if you listen to Vladimir Lenin, here's a man who's responsible probably for more deaths of humans in all of history than any other human. And here's what he said: if you want to destroy a culture, change the meaning of its words. You notice that virtually everyone came into a world as the presence of love, and then they were lied to. They were told that love was something that you did, or that was done to you, or that if you were a good person would be done to you, or that you would get from somebody else, or that you would give to somebody else. And all of that is a fraud. And if you get caught in the fraud, then your mind doesn't know what to do. And the result is confusion. How many times have we heard people in relationships and the whole game for them is about confusion? If you don't get clarity on who you are, if you're not living from who you are, then you're living from some kind of mental construct about love that becomes, oh, God, self-sacrifice, sexual athletics, all kinds of crazy definitions. Now, the really bad news that comes with this is that nobody has ever loved you. Nobody is ever going to love you. You have never loved anyone. And you are never going to love anyone. And God does not love you. All of that is a fraud, period. Are the presence of love. Love isn't something you're going to get from somebody else or that somebody else is going to do to you. Now, notice that what people think they are is really important. Like if somebody thinks of themselves, you get the little kid who starts out as love, and they're told because one day they, they were 2 and they did something, and somebody looked at them and said, oh, you did that. They didn't do that at all. It happened. The child participated. The child didn't say, I think I'm going to do this terrible, bad thing. But the adult standing by told them that they were the kind of person who does terrible, bad things. And the child who holds the belief that they are bad will tend to act badly because that's what they think they are. If you don't know who you are, then you will act out of who you think you are. And if you've been told the lies of the world that you're not good enough, you're broken, you'll never be good enough, your sister or your brother is better than you, or the 1,000 lies that come along, that form a false identity for us as humans. If you don't ever discover and function as you are, then you will never function as love. You'll function out of your BS. By the way, that's a belief system. If you have a different set of initials for that, if you have a different reality in your mind, notice that, somebody who holds one reality for his initials, BS, thinks and acts one way. If I say to somebody, you're full of BS, and they think of it in the world's BS terms, saying, well, how dare you say that about me? Whereas if that person knows that what I'm saying is you're functioning out of a belief system, they might be inspired to look into their belief systems and perhaps dismantle or forgive a false belief system. Can't function out of who you are if you haven't had the experience of who you are and you don't know who you are. And you are the created essence of love, period. Most of us came into a family system that as quickly as possible, often in the name of love. I mean, how many have ever heard that? I'm only hitting you because I love you and it hurts me more than it hurts you. I remember being fed that line and the one who hit me, they weren't crying, they weren't wailing, they weren't in pain. It wasn't hurting them more than it hurt me. It's just such a crock that we've been fed. And it's time to stop eating that crock. And it's time to start knowing the truth. You and I and every human being, yes, even the person who you call the enemy, is literally made of the energy called love. That's their substance. They were made in the image and likeness of a creator called love, and that's who they are. And they won't function out of that until they know that. If they have a mental construct that there's something less, there's something worse, there's something broken, there's something wrong with them, then they'll function as someone worse, broken, and something's wrong with them. Until that idea is confronted, that lie is forgiven. So people are brought into the world, they have the experience of love knocked out of them, sometimes with a fist, unfortunately, and then they're told, they're sent out into the world with a command that says, now go find somebody to love you. Or go find somebody to love. And the command is false. It's a lie. We're given a command that can't be fulfilled. Person will never experience until they correct their minds. Remember, Paul talks about be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Until they correct their minds, they won't be able to find themselves as love, won't be able to experience themselves. And trying to function out of those insane power person messages, unconsciously motivated by them, leads to such trauma, such insanity.
Their trauma, they're embracing it from the point of conscious, active, present love. If you look at step 4 in the wake-up sheet, step 4 is where you bring forward, purposely, consciously, you enter into the practice of bringing love, conscious, active, and present, in your mind. And once you've done that, then you transfer your answer from step 3, where you've identified the goal, characteristic of wisdom, not to do desperate things. What Thoreau is giving us is a clue to his comprehension of what it is to experience actuality directly, a state that, by and large, today is undescribable. We have no words for what is not in common experience. And if you just look around at what's going on in the world, you'll see the desperation. It looks like rage. It looks like vengeance. It looks like violent words, violent actions, violent thoughts. You can sit quietly in the midst of the turmoil of the cognitive mind, the holy instant. If there is any turmoil, you will feel the underlying current of love and serenity that's just below the surface mind's disturbances.
When you can do that, you're approaching the possible human life. If not, your untoward projections will ultimately destroy you unless they're removed. Nothing else can destroy you but the energetic patterns that are of a disintegrative nature, should you choose to engage in them. In the first century Aramaic language, removal of these untoward projections was called forgiveness. Thoughts based on heinous criminals come before him, but he would hold the space and be the space of love for them. And he would say, when he was sent to, seem like some heinous crime, and he would say to this person, I love you like a brother, sister, but you're not safe in the community, and the community has built a building with bars around it to isolate you from the community, and they asked me to decide who's safe in the community and who isn't, and you're not. So I'm going to sentence you to life behind bars. And I hold that space of love for you. I hold that you experience yourself as who you are, and I'll even sentence you to laws of living. One day in the federal penitentiary in Atlanta, one day, actually this was over a period of months, he went into the penitentiary and the word got around as to what he was doing, and there were some people who really didn't like what he was doing, teaching people about the truth and how to experience themselves and function as love. And someone in the prison system put a hit out on him. There was one guy who had come to Laws of Living who was in there for life. And I don't remember now exactly how many, but while he was in prison, he murdered several more times, 3 or 4 times, after being put in prison for life, in federal pen in Atlanta. And he did Laws of Living, and he really saw what Dan was doing. And he woke up as love. And there was actually a contract put out on Dan, and this guy protected him and saved his life, or he'd have been killed in the prison. The guy who confessed that he just liked to murder people. I mean, literally, that's what put him in the penitentiary in the first place. And as I say, he committed several other murders in the years that he was in there. And I guess, kind of if you're in there for life, what can they do to you? Give you a life sentence? I don't know. But anyway, he became Dan's protector. He stood between he and more than one person who was trying to execute a contract on Dan and kill him. What's possible? The truth is, each and every one of us is the substance and the presence of love if we wake up to who we are. And each one of us that chooses that, by choosing it, wakes up, resonates, sets up an energy field that at least begins the awakening process for love in others, for the truth of who they are. And in the process, you simply throw off everything to do with hate and fear and pain inflicted and abuse and degradation and sexual assault and whatever's happened. You literally begin to remove those energetic patterns. You begin to forgive those patterns that are so deeply physiologically ingrained, because in an individual's bloodline that experiences that kind of assault, it's been going on most likely for generations. Remember that story in the scriptures about the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years? Do you really think that a group of people who understood astronomy as they did could possibly be lost in a 35 square mile area for 40 years? Hello? Now, that's a nice literal story to talk about. But, they wrote about astronomy
up to working 7 or 8 hours. He spent 50 days at Heartland this summer. He's up to working 7 or 8 hours. And so the reducer organs are designed to digest them, to get rid of them. So these reducer organs, the things we call the bacteria, the virus, are designed to have an affinity for dying cells and assist, like the lion in the jungle, in calling out the diseased cells. Our offering here is that all disease is self-imposed. Now, somebody might say, well, Michael, that sounds like a big stretch. I don't know if I want to go there. What if you're wrong? Well, here's my offering. If I'm right and you realize that all disease is self-imposed, then you'll be motivated to heal. You'll see that moving from the desert to the promised land, one thing had occurred. Do you remember what it was? They said the old generation had to die off. That didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the causes held, yes, right down into your genes that would present, when resonated, something based in hostility or fear. And if it came up and grabbed you by the face and sucked you in and you were doing its behavior and you just said, well, I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't help myself. The urge was just so overwhelming. That urge comes from the desert, comes from the unconscious. There's a thing in the mind called the automatic decision system. It's an important part of our course on laws of living to understand that. And forgiveness cracks the automatic decision system. Forgiveness opens the personal code and allows us to remove, forgive information that doesn't belong. And the word forgive means remove. Doesn't mean let somebody else off the hook. As you remove that insanity, then you're restored to the presence of love. You're now out of the desert. Where do you live now? Promised land. What's the promised land? It's the land of conscious co-creation. We consciously know who we are, and we consciously creating life out of love. Living in the desert, the unconscious, a sort of hell, we live in unconscious co-creation. Oh, we're still creators, but we have no idea that we're responsible for our why is this happening to me again experience. Certainly it must be someone else's fault, and you're here, so it must be your fault. Thus, the unconscious cycle of denial, dissociation, projection, externalization happens, and people become lost in the desert of their own generational patterns. They're unconscious. You remember in the scriptures it said, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. Now, that wasn't a sexist comment, fathers, but it was that which sources your thinking. It could be fathers and mothers through the generations. Look to those lives, clean up, forgive what's in you from there. You remember Yeshua was talking to one particular group of people, and he says, your father is a liar. He is the king of liars. There is no truth in him. Guess what he was talking about? He was talking about perception based in hostility or fear. When your mind is locked into any form of hostility or fear, something from the generations has taken over, and it'll run your life. And you're not designed to be run by that. You're designed to experience yourself as the truth of who you are. And the MindShifter tool is designed to resonate those things that we've dissociated from, we've locked away in the lockbox of the unconscious, and therefore, whenever it steps in and functions, it functions unconsciously. We don't even know what's going on. Somebody says, well, did you hear what you just said? And people say, well, I didn't say that. Like, excuse me, there were 10 of us, all 10. What did he just say? He said that. No, I didn't say that. Unconscious, triggered words right out of the mouth. And people swear, I never said those words. Oh, excuse me, we've got a recording here. Oh, yeah, I heard the recording, but I didn't say it. It's like, excuse me? That's how the unconscious works. Forgiveness is a way to clean up the unconscious. MindShifter is a tool
for getting those things that are hidden away, that we've subverted so deeply that we don't see them, getting to resonate again. So through resonance, they're strengthened and they fire off in the mind at a level where we can become conscious of them again. And that's why you split the page and you write whatever comes up from the MindShifter on the right-hand side of the page, because then you can go back and work through it. You can go back and look and go, oh, my God, I didn't realize I had that. I remember the early days of writing MindShifters, and I go back to one after having written. It's like, where did this come from? I don't remember writing a word of this. Oh, my God, that's in my mind? Yeah, that's it. It's called the desert. It's called the unconscious. Most people live there at least the first 40 years of their lives. That's why if you're with us today, Mike, that's why I was excited about your call yesterday, is that 25, you're ready for this and rock it and see the truth of it. And we're here to support you 2,000%. And then the still point breathing process, the use of the breath, is the key way to opening the unconscious. You know, when they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, they weren't talking about a purple curtain in a church. The veil of the temple is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. Remember when you've seen me draw on the board and I draw a stick man, and then I draw a dotted line, and then I draw in the head, and then below that I draw a line, and there's just one little opening in it? That's the veil. That's the barrier of the temple. The barrier between the conscious and the subconscious mind it's a fenestrated barrier, but the conscious and subconscious are continuously exchanging places all the time. Rarely does what's in the unconscious pick up. That's why when I draw it just one little opening. Rarely do people consciously, purposely get in touch with what's going on in their unconscious. And that veil, that barrier, they said, had to be torn in two. Again, it's not a purple curtain in a church. That veil between the subconscious and the unconscious is built by holding the breath. And it's broken down by using the still point breath. That's what the still point breath is designed to do. Open the veil and give you contact with what's in the unconscious. And as that vitalization takes place, as you step into community, you touch the hem of the garment of everybody in the community, and everybody's vitalized. Everybody has an easier time of opening that veil and staying conscious and moving through those things that need to be removed. And then you get to taste yourself as love. You get to experience yourself as who you are. And everything shifts. Until the next time an unconscious dynamic comes into play, and then you'll get your next forgiveness opportunity. And your next, and your next, and your next. And if you're the early adopter, if you're one who's grabbed hold of these tools, and you can't look back and say mom or dad or sister or brother or aunt or uncle or cousin or whatever. You can't think of anybody else who could even think about entertaining the conversation. Being the early adopter, you've taken on a big chunk to bite, a big chunk to chew. And we're here to assist you in developing your masseter muscle. The masseter is the one there that controls your jaw. That big muscle when you clench your jaw, the one where a lot of people use to hold back and shut down and keep the unconscious closed when they clench their jaws. We're here to soften and open that, breathe through it. And the breath opens the Native Americans were brilliant. They understood healing. Whenever the Native Americans, you've perhaps heard it if you've gone into a sweat lodge with them or into a healing ceremony, they'll use the words metakwiasan. It means for all my relations. Doing this just for me. We're doing this for all our relations. And who are all of our relations? Well, Einstein says this. If you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you are living in an optical delusion. The truth is, there's only one of us. We are cells in what the ancients called the mystical body of Christ. The mind of love designed to function, and that's the mind that was called the mind of Christ. Remember, Paul talked about the mind of Christ in you. That mind, designed to function through your physiology, opens and changes everything. It's not a religious journey. Christ has nothing to do with religion. The word Christ there, that mind of Christ, is the mind of love in you. Literally, you are, and you have as your birthright the right and the capacity to live out of the mind of love. That's all. Because it's what you are. So I breathe with you, if that resonates anything for you, and whatever's moving, that you breathe fully and freely, opening, whatever's resonating at this moment, opening the veil of your temple, and moving deeper and deeper into the state that we are each designed to live in. I'm just going to invite you to take a couple of deep breaths with me. I know Jeannie sometimes says I sound like Darth Vader on the other end, but one of the things I do, especially when I'm working with people, especially if something touches or moves something in me, is I breathe. So if I sound like Darth, it's really about me just opening my veil. So I breathe with you, invite you to breathe with me. Allow yourself to close your eyes and look inside and see the presence of love that is there. Experience the truth about who you are. And if you look with your inner eye, it may show up as a light, literally in each cell. And as you breathe, look at the light in each cell as it expands and reaches out beyond its own borders, the cellular borders, to the other cells that seem to be separate but are really part of one body. When you realize there are trillions of cells that make up what you call your body, there's obviously just one you, but there are trillions of individuated components. In the same way, there are, they're telling us now, about 8 billion people on the planet, each seemingly separate, but not separate, only individuated. And so see that light expanding out from each cell. And as it touches the light from the cell nearest it, watch that joining and that expanding of that light. Notice where there are any blocks in your breathing, if there are any, and let yourself breathe into that. Your physiology is a device designed to incarnate conscious, active, present love. If your generations are filled with rage and guilt and grief and murder and abuse and hostility and rage and criticism and condemnation and fear and victimhood and gossip and slander, guess what you're going to need to do to function out of that love? You're going to need to work through and apply forgiveness to what's stored in your physiology. You have to work through what came from the lives of the fathers. This is not always a pleasant work to do, but it's a necessary work. We're here to support you, assist you in understanding and applying the tools of forgiveness. Tools of the MindShifter, the still point breathing, the commitment, the power person worksheet, the responsibility communication tool. Each and every one of them. We hold a space of appreciation for each of you. Well, then let's just continue our meditation and our breath.
Yeah.
And just everybody, if you would, just take a breath, stay with that energy, and watch that light. And with your inner eye, watch that light in each cell expanding till it touches the light, spills over the borders of each cell into contact, into connection with the other light energy moving in each cell. And as the trillions of cells that make up your structure, the light expands in them and joins that light, exudes from your whole, what you call your body. And it moves out. And remember, there's nothing in the so-called physical world that can stop that penetratingly powerful presence of love. So if there's someone in your life that needs some support right now, they may be in the same room, they may be on the other side of the planet. It may be someone unknown. I invite you to breathe and hold to that active present love with and for them. The truth about you is that you are blessed, and you are the actual created essence of the Creator's love, designed to come in and inhabit this world consciously as love and bring those results into your world. And in so doing, you'll be empowered to create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Please go give it away.